Hi, I'm Murray Wilson. I'm a retired forester from Vernon, British Columbia, and I made a film called BC is Burning. Well, I showed the film over the last year to 15 communities and about 10 conferences. And what struck me most is it's now a conversation that people want to have. People were genuinely engaged, and I've seen the film so many times. I would sit in the theater or wherever it was, and I would, instead of watching the film, I would watch the audience. And the audience weren't using their phones, they weren't talking to their friends, they were actively watching and listening through the entire film. So that really struck me, as that people were actually interested in the topic. You know, one of the highlights for me is I showed the film in Victoria, the provincial capital, to 120 mayors and councillors. And at the end of the film, they gave the film a standing ovation. That was really exciting for me. And it really showed me that the film's topic and message were resonating with people. Showing it to local government officials really was kind of profound for me, because they really get it. They're worried about their communities. They're worried about the strain on their infrastructure. They're worried about the economics around their community. So the other group that really resonated with me, well, there's two others, but one was I showed it to a group of medical health professionals at a conference. And that was very encouraging, because they looked at it very analytically and said, wow, they actually were physically excited about it. They said, I love what this message is. Really, when I went to a local community that had been impacted by fire, those people really shared what happened with them, and that was exciting. You know, kind of a cool thing that with the film is I would show the film. I had tremendous support from BC Wildfire Service, Ministry of Forests, West Bank First Nations, Kamloops to Kamloops. After the film was over and the question and answer period over, people would come up often and share with me their experiences on fires. A number of things really struck home with me. I had a fellow who was owner of a large company, and he came up to me and he said, you know, Murray, originally I lived in Toronto, Vancouver, now I'm in the Okanagan, and when I saw logging trucks, he said, I was, why are we doing this? And he said, your film has changed my view 180 degrees. He says, I don't think you realize how big of an impact this has had on me. I went from saying we shouldn't be managing our forest to now we should be managing our forest. And then he introduced me to more people. And I had another person come up to me and say, you know, I built my house with concrete because I didn't want to support the forest sector. And he says, your film has now changed, not changed my view entirely, but I need to do more research. I need to understand this topic, because I think we tend to listen to the people that have extreme views on either end, but there's a very large portion of our population that has poor information or not complete information. And when they get presented with actual factual type information, they come to a conclusion, and that was exciting for me. You know, questions came up again and again as, why aren't we doing something? Why aren't we taking action? You know, where is the urgency? And another question that came up a lot is, how do we pay for this? And, you know, my part of the film, what I'm saying is, if we have active forest management that can pay for itself, then it doesn't cost us money and we can actually do it. Now, there's other factors. How do we pay for this? Is I look at the CO2 impacts from wildfires, which are now regularly doubling in British Columbia, the emissions from all other sources. So I think we've got to look at that as kind of a climate initiative as well. And some of the funding that we spend on right now, we're spending on heat pumps and green building codes and things like that. We would get a far bigger bang for our buck investing into forest management if our actual goal is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So in the film, certainly not everybody that comes to a screening is enamored with the conversation. And so certainly I had common questions, a lot on clear cutting, on glyphosate were common questions. And then I have other folks that have views on things like chemtrails and things like that. So addressing those questions really, I think, is, we look at we talk about our forest types, how they, we have a variety of forests in our province, different methods for different forests. That's what we need to do. Glyphosate is a conversation that's, I'm not an expert on it, but we've just for 2024, I think there was 380 hectares treated in the province with glyphosate. At the same time, we burned about 1 million hectares. So I think you can't answer all those questions thoroughly enough, but it created a conversation, and hopefully there's more follow-up with that. As far as the chemtrail type conversations, I'm certainly not an expert on those things, and didn't try to address them in too much detail. I look back at my career and say, if there's one thing that you could really change on what happened, and I would say the public education process. I mean, when I first started working in the sector, we did quite a bit. We talked at schools, we did lots of open houses, talking to communities. We put up signs in the forest and said this area was harvested in such and such a year, and it was reforested in such and such a year. So people that actually drove out in the forest could say, yeah, this area was harvested 20 years ago, look at it today. And I think, the forest industry goes through various economic cycles. It's a commodity market, so it has peaks and valleys. And we stepped away from doing a lot of public education on forest management. And I think that's come back and hurt us. For a while in the company I worked for, we actually took all of our employees, sawmill employees, out into the forest. And that was really groundbreaking, because a lot of them had misconceptions as well, just because they didn't have the information in front of them. I think back, I took a group out in Peachland years ago, which is still a controversial area, and there was a counselor there, and he went out for the day, and at the end of the day he said, "Are you the best? Like, is your company the best?" And I said, "Well, I think we do a really good job, but I think others do as well." And he said, "Well, this makes nothing but sense to me." So I think when I look back at the career, we really missed an opportunity to explain forest management to folks, because I think for the most people, they really want to understand it, but in the absence of not doing that, other avenues have covered that off for us. I showed the film to lots of folks, and then people came up to me after, and they had some different takeaway messages. And one that I was excited about, that I wasn't necessarily, people said, "What can I do?" For the most part, I got that sense talking to people, that there are opportunities, that we can do something about wildfires. Through active forest management, we can reduce wildfire risk, we can reduce CO2 emissions in the atmosphere, and we have a viable economic environment. So I think that really resonated with a lot of people, and I think people came up to me after and said, "What do I do? How do I make that happen?" Talk to your local MLA, talk to your MP, talk to your local government. So I think that was really kind of exciting to hear that people said that those things resonated with them. Well, I mentioned we showed the film to over 4,000 people in person, and that was a great experience, because you got live feedback all the time. We had over 380 questions that people typed into Slido, so I could look at them and see where it was going. Going online was a little scary at first, because you don't know how many people are going to watch it, but I think we had like 160,000 viewers in less than a week or two, and we're over 550,000 views here now on 5-6 weeks into it. So it was tremendous response. So it doesn't feel as personal when you get a YouTube response, but it was exciting to see. For me, it was kind of cool to see the analytics. Like I mentioned, a large portion of our largest viewership was actually in Ontario, which surprised me for a film called BC is Burning. So I could see which cities and which towns were watching it. So that was really exciting. And then we've had several hundred comments. I responded to a few at the start, but I certainly haven't been diligent enough following up on them. But it was great to see the conversation that it was creating, and that was really exciting to see the conversation expand just beyond a local screening to now that it's actually become not only national but international as well. So that was really exciting. Is really exciting. We're entering into the fire season now, the main fire season in British Columbia, and it's July, and we're standing in a forest, and there's spruce budworm attacking the Douglas fir. And it's concerning where I live in the south, because we've had a low snowpack in the Okanagan, and we've got very dry conditions. We haven't had a lot of rain, and I'm looking at forest health with the spruce budworm and Douglas fir tussock moth and other insects that are impacting our forest and the dry conditions. So I think, like all of us, I'm concerned that this summer could be another. I'm hoping it isn't, but conditions are not looking great, and I'm hoping that we have a safe summer with not a lot of smoke. Screening the film exceeded my wildest expectations. To have, show it to 15 communities and 10 conferences, and thousands of people watch the film, and now to have over 500,000 people watch the film in 40 days after we released it is pretty profound for, I think, myself and Ryan and Rick producing the film, and all those people that donated those to have the film shown. So it's exceeded our wildest expectations, and it certainly gives me hope that the reason we created the film was to generate a conversation on solutions, and I think it's done that. And so that's super exciting for all of us. It's exceeded our wildest expectations. I'm hoping that we'll see some urgency brought to the situation, that we'll see significant changes from a regulatory process that help us reduce wildfire risk in this province. Well, making this film was, I'm getting lots of the credit for it, but there's so many people to thank. First is my wife Suzanne and daughter Elise and son Mitchell, who did a lot of feedback on the film that gave me that harsh criticism that I needed. Certainly, when I look at Rick Madison and all the work that he did to make the film happen, and Ryan Tebbett from Edge Digital Media, the film would not be what it is without his great skills and his passion for it. And also the donors that made this happen, that took a chance donating money to this this person that they didn't have any track record, and then really all the people that came out and watched it and supported it. It's just been tremendous. So it's certainly, I thank all of you, and it just exceeded all my wildest expectations.